everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're here to talk about episode 1 of Oshi no Ko season 2. Do we have any other writers watching this episode? Because if we do, I don't know about you, but there was part of me that grinned and part of me that winced at the ending of this episode when the writer for the actual source material of the play that they're doing basically turns to the script writer and goes, could you just rewrite the entire script, please? Because holy crap, my dudes, that is a lot of work. And as somebody who has written in a lot of different mediums, I mean, sure, it's as a hobby, but still, it's very, very different when you're writing a short story versus a novel versus a script. There are so many different ways writing can work, and when you're translating something from one medium to another, things get very, very complicated. And as the actual person in there was saying when they were talking to Akane, it actually requires different types of things to be put in the front or the back or whatever, depending on what you're doing. Because, as an example, think of the Harry Potter movies. When they're taking 300, 400, 500, 600 pages of material and taking that and putting it into a 2 or 3 hour movie, there is always going to be stuff that gets lost in the translation. And the challenge between being the person who wrote the original thing and the person who is adapting something for a film or for a TV series or whatever is determining what actually makes it into the final cut and what does not. And that is something that is actually very legit and very real when you're working with this kind of stuff. I'm relieved to see the person who wrote the story speak up, because it's very obvious when we watch the episode that Akane was actually very upset about everything that was going on, and she felt like she was getting a really raw deal, and she felt like she was concerned on behalf of the actual character, which is something else I can really empathize with. One of the jokes I often make when I talk about writing is characters waking me up at 3 in the morning with stories they want me to write down. So I can really get behind that kind of connecting with the character and stuff, and I thought that that was really cool. But this was definitely where I had to start talking about this, because that last bit, it just hit me straight in the face, both with how I felt that Akane was correct and the author was potentially correct, that there's something wrong with the adaptation, but also wincing in sympathy because nobody likes being told, could you just rewrite all of this? Nobody wants to hear that. That is the kiss of doom. It's just not good. And I could totally imagine just how crushed that screenwriter must have felt in that moment. Whether he ends up being obligated to do it or not, it's still incredibly embarrassing to have the original creator of a work just come out and basically smack you across the face with that. And the way the person said that to him was very much like that. There was not a lot of softening or tact, which I found kind of funny, because the other guy, the guy who's probably from the acting school or whatever, was telling the screenwriter not to coddle Akane. Well, the original writer for this piece of work sure as hell didn't coddle the screenwriter. So that seemed like a bit of, at least a touch of just comeuppance. So that was satisfying. We seem to have really dived into this, straight into what's going on with the production of the play, without really any fooling around or any wasting time outside of what's going on the set. But that's not necessarily a mistake, because what's going on the set seems to really mirror what's going on with the characters, and there seems to be a connection between each of the major characters and the character that they are portraying, most especially at this point when we are talking about Akane or Kana and their respective characters in the play. It really seems like Akane is getting a raw deal here, as I was saying earlier, because the character she is portraying has been drastically altered from how it was set up in its original source material. And as we saw in season 1, Akane is a very detail-oriented actor who gets very deeply inside of a character. So for her to get into the original source material to the best of her ability, and then to find out that the character that they actually want her to portray on the screen is someone completely different from what she had actually engaged with, that would be very difficult and probably very soul-crushing, because, as I said a moment ago, I wager that Akane is the kind of person who gets very connected to the characters that she portrays, because she goes into playing them so deeply, and that kind of immersive acting is the thing that she is really good at and is her strong suit. I also really genuinely felt for her in this episode because she's sitting there and she's trying to explain all of this to Aqua, and he turns around and he completely threw her under the bus. I'm sure he thought that he was helping her, but the thing is, he has to remember he's not used to being in these environments. He's used to being in a more logic-based environment as a doctor in his past life, and he's probably used to being in charge, giving orders, having a higher level of authority, that sort of thing. And that has carried over to him in his new life as Aqua, and he is very assertive and is very strong in that way, and is very much a character who doesn't take no for an answer. So when he puts it that way and sets Akane up for that, he's setting her up to be incredibly awkward and incredibly stuck, because the situation she is in and the role she plays within society and within the interactions she's having with people is very different. So her being told on the spot, okay, tell them what you think is wrong with this script, is insane, because she's probably sitting there and thinking like, holy crap, dude, I could end up getting like fired, replaced, expelled, whatever it ends up being. I don't quite remember whether this is a side thing or whether this is like a school for actors that she's part of. I don't quite recall how it works, but it's absolutely wild that he did that to her. And again, I'm sure he thought he was helping, but holy crap, it just shows how much of a separation there really is between how he does things and what he thinks is normal and what actually is normal in this situation. Someone who seems to be doing a lot better in this situation, though, is Kana, who actually seems like she's able to get out there and do her best and not have to worry about accommodating the other actors, because everyone she's surrounded by, it seems, actually has organic talent. So she isn't sitting there and trying to play down her own skills to build theirs up. And it's really showing in the work that she's doing. Another interesting thing that I noticed with regard to her character and what was going on in general is that she seems to be connecting with another guy. I don't know whether that's going to go anywhere outside of professionalism, but there is an interesting possibility of something maybe happening, who knows, with the kind of show that this is. And I wonder just how Aqua will actually react to that, given that she has been at least hinting that she's interested in him throughout most of season 1, and while I don't necessarily think that he sees her that way, I don't think he really sees anyone that way. I don't even think he sees himself as the person he is here and now. I do think that it's going to be interesting to see what kinds of complications and confusions this could cause, especially given that Aqua is doing the business relationship with Akane, and yes, Akane is very aware of the fact that that is only for business, but at the same time, I mean, why should she be sitting around and waiting for him to deal with that if anything was going to go on anyway, when she could potentially find somebody in the world who doesn't necessarily have the kind of baggage and weight on them that Aqua does. I really do feel sorry for both of these girls in a way, because neither one of them have any idea what kind of malevolent shitstorm they are actually in the middle of engaging with whenever they engage with Aqua. And it's not so much that Aqua is an inherently bad person. I can completely understand why Aqua wants to find out who his father is, wants to get revenge for Ai, all of that. But insofar as interacting with other people in this timeline who are not reincarnated, who did not experience Ai's death, and who are not part of that, it is an incredibly concerning situation. And I wonder just how seriously he will actually end up taking the reality that anything he does with regard to this situation is going to impact their lives, and whether that is one of the key reasons that he tries to keep his distance. Overall, though, I think that this is a pretty good first episode for a new season, and I think that season 2 is off to a solid start. This certainly isn't going to be turning heads the way that the first episode of season 1 did, but I don't think anybody expected that anyway. I am looking forward to seeing what actually happens with these characters and to see how much we'll actually be focusing on this play as opposed to how much we'll be focusing on the characters, and how much it'll be the play reflecting what's going on under the surface versus us seeing it directly. I wonder, what did you guys think of this episode? Have you watched it? Do you plan to continue? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye!